Motivation by Julia, Alexandra, and Tom. We'll begin with a discussion of our thesis, a history of the issues, as well as a discussion of the main theories of the issues of motivation. We'll state the effects of these issues on the school system, and then discuss how the issues can be resolved. We'll finish with some concluding thoughts. Our thesis statement. Student motivation is a critical component of any student's education. Issues in student motivation manifest themselves in students' behavior. It is the teacher's job to carefully observe the behaviors, assess them, and provide students with instruction to aid these behaviors.
Let's give a brief history of the theories. Human motivation has been studied formally since the early 20th century. A brief timeline of these theories includes the reinforcement theory from the 1920s, Maslow's hierarchy of needs in 1943, Herzberg's two-factor theory from 1959, Alderfer's ERG theory in 1969, McClelland's acquired needs theory in 1960s, equity theory in 1963, expectancy theory of 1964, cognitive evaluation in 1975, and self-determination theory from 1970s to the 2000s. Let's go a little bit more in depth for the major names and theories. The first theory on the timeline is the reinforcement theory. It was proposed by B.F. Skinner and his associates. It states that human behavior is a function of its consequences, so it focuses on external factors rather than internal factors and their motivation internally. These external stimuli can be added, which is positive, and also taken away, which is negative. These positive and negative stimuli can be used to reinforce or attempt to increase the frequency of a desirable behavior, or punish, which aims to decrease the frequency of an undesired behavior. The next theory on the timeline is Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which was proposed by Abraham Harold Maslow. It contains 5 basic levels listed from base to top, the first of which is physiological, which includes the basic amenities of life, which are air, water, food, clothing, and shelter. The second level of Maslow's pyramid is safety. It includes physical, environmental, and emotional safety that a human being feels. The third level contains the social needs, which include love, affection, care, and a sense of belongingness. The fourth level is esteem, and this includes the need for power, recognition, status, confidence, achievement, and competence. And the top layer, the fifth, is self-actualization, which is realizing one's full potential as a human being, and this includes things like growth and self-contentment. According to Maslow's theory, you must satisfy your human needs from the bottom of the pyramid to the top of the pyramid. This means you cannot self-actualize unless you have satisfied all the levels below it. The next 3 theories were all inspired by Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They all stem from that theory in different ways. Herzberg's two-factor theory, which was proposed by Frederick Herzberg, contains only 2 different categories, the first of which being hygiene factors. These are generally extrinsic and include things such as pay, benefits, status, working conditions, and job security. The next category, and the last of which, is motivators, and this yields to positive satisfaction in terms of recognition, sense of achievement, responsibility, and meaningful work. Alderfer's ERG theory, which was proposed by Clayton Alderfer, has actually 3 categories, the first of which is existence needs, which includes basic material needs, including physiological and safety needs. This combines the base 2 levels of Maslow's hierarchy pyramid. The next category is relatedness needs, which includes aspiration for interpersonal relationships and recognition. The last category of this theory is growth needs, and this includes self-development, personal growth, and advancement. The last theory is McClelland's acquired needs, proposed by David McClelland. This theory, too, has 3 categories, the first of which is achievement, which is the urge to accomplish based on a set of standards. Second, power, which is the desire to influence others' behavior at will, and third, affiliation, the need for open and sociable interpersonal relationships. As you can see, each of these three theories contains the same factors as Maslow's hierarchy of needs, each in a slightly different order and slightly different combination. The next theory on the timeline is the equity theory, and this was proposed by John Stacy Adams. It basically shows the perception of outcomes of equity, fairness, and justice. It weighs your outcomes over your inputs and compares them to the outcomes of others based on their inputs. This comparison can lead to three things: over-rewarded, where your outcome is greater than your input as compared to others; equity, where it is equal; and under-rewarded, where your outcome is less than the amount of input that you put into it. The underlying principle of this theory is that your equal input as compared to others should equal the same outcome, though this is not always so in reality. The next theory is the expectancy theory, and this was proposed by Victor Vroom. This theory follows the format that a person exerts effort to achieve a task and realize a certain outcome. There are three factors that contribute to this process. The first, expectancy, which is the faith that better efforts will result in a better performance overall. The second, instrumentality, which is faith in someone's own performance and abilities. And third, valence, which is the significance one holds for the goal that they are desiring to accomplish. Let's take the example of studying for a test, weighing those three different categories. The expectancy category will be satisfied with the question of, can I achieve the desired grade that I want? If I study more, I'm going to get a better grade. For the instrumentality category, it is faith that they are able to study to make this outcome a reality. And lastly, valence, that this test is important enough to them to motivate them to study. The last two theories on the timeline were both proposed by Edward L. Deci and Richard M. Ryan. The cognitive evaluation theory only includes two categories, dividing motivation into extrinsic and intrinsic means. Extrinsic including pay, promotion, feedback, and working conditions, and intrinsic including achievement, responsibility, and competence. Similar factors to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Deci and Ryan accredited their foundational principles to Maslow. And the last theory on the timeline is self-determination theory, and this has three categories: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. Autonomy would include the need to control the course of their own lives. Competence, which includes the need to be effective in dealing with their environment, and relatedness, the need to have close, affectionate relationships with others. This theory, too, has factors that are directly inspired by Maslow as well. All of these theories combined illustrate the point that human needs have been defined similarly within the last century, and evolved from similar principles that underlie them all. To give a brief history of motivation issues in the workplace, the top 5 employee motivation problems that were listed by Billy Nordmeyer are: 1. Low self-confidence; 2. Low expectations for success; 3. Lack of interest in the subject matter; 4. Achievement anxiety; and 5. Fear of failure. These problems that manifested themselves in the workplace were probably due to unresolved problems from a child's education that continued on into their adulthood. According to Nordmeyer, motivational problems can lead to performance issues that cost a business thousands of dollars in losses each year. A lack of motivation can lead to delays in the employee's completion of work and simple but extensive mistakes. Unfortunately, several issues may sap an employee's motivation and leave him or her unproductive and a minor contributor to the bottom line. This leads to the effects of motivation on the school system. As said by the Center of Education Policy, 2012, motivation is a central part of a student's educational experience from preschool onward, but it has received scant attention amid an education reform agenda focused mainly on accountability, standards and tests, teacher quality, and school management. What they mean to say is the focus has not been on promoting student motivation, but other factors that contribute to student success. However, student motivation can affect these factors. 1. How they relate to teachers. 2. How much time and effort they devote to their studies. 3. How much support they seek when they're struggling. And 4. How they perform on tests. From our research, we concluded that if a student is not motivated, it does not matter how effective the teacher is or how effective the curriculum is. Therefore, a student must be motivated in order to succeed academically. The Center of Education Policy stated in 2012 that upwards of 40% of high school students are disengaged from learning, are inattentive, exert little effort on schoolwork, and report being bored in school, according to a 2004 analysis by the National Research Council. Furthermore, in 2006, a survey exploring why students dropped out of school noted that 70% of high school dropouts said that they were unmotivated. This may be caused by the simple factor that schools have tended to define progress based on performance goals. A performance goal involves reaching a predefined level of performance or outperforming others, while the opposite, which is mastery-based goals, should be preferred. This involves demonstrating an increased understanding, skills, and content knowledge. Mastery-based goals and performance-based goals comparison could be the same as comparing extrinsic or external goals to intrinsic or internal goals. Let's give an example of this. Let's use student assessment. The extrinsic factor of this goal would be saying to yourself, I want to pass this test so I can get a good grade and get into college. The ability to get into college is the external motivator for the student to study for the test. On the other hand, the intrinsic way of motivating oneself would be to say, I want to know and master this material because it interests or inspires me. In this case, the student is intrinsically or internally motivated to study for this test just for the sake of mastering the material and knowing more about it. According to our textbook, motivation of students requires the use of both intrinsic and extrinsic factors in combination. The Center of Education Policy further outlines 4 dimensions of student motivation. 1. Competence. The student believes that he or she has the ability to complete the task. 2. Control and autonomy, where the student feels in control by seeing a direct link between his or her actions and an outcome, and retains autonomy by having some choice about whether or how to undertake the task. 3. Interest and value, where the student has some interest in the task or sees the value of completing it. And 4. Relatedness. Completing the task brings the student social rewards, such as a sense of belonging to a classroom or a desired social group or approval from a person of social importance to the student. These 4 dimensions of student motivation must be catered to very carefully, as every teacher is creating a lesson plan so that it includes everyone. It is very important for the teacher to create a very safe and welcoming classroom environment, make the content relevant to every student, and give some element of choice or autonomy so that he or she can prove their competence in that certain task. Just as extrinsic and intrinsic factors work together, each of these 4 dimensions of motivation work together as well, and must be utilized properly by every teacher. The most important factors concerning student motivation are strategic lesson planning, and yes, highlighting the word planning. Every lesson must be planned for in order to accommodate for all the 4 dimensions, as well as the intrinsic and extrinsic motivating factors of each individual student, depending on their needs, personality, and learning level. The other most important factor in student motivation is support, and this can be in terms of their psychological needs as well as their academic needs. Psychologically, the student must feel that they can receive support from the teacher and their peers if they would need to do so. The student must also feel very safe in their social and physical environment. They must feel emotionally, physically, and mentally respected in the classroom as well. And as far as academic support goes, they must have access to informational meetings so that complicated processes, such as applying for college, don't seem so daunting of a task. If they have access to and attend informational meetings, they are more likely to feel prepared to conduct that task. And the last form of academic support is tutoring, or a way to get extra help on the things they need help on. Access to this form of academic support can help the student feel that they have the support they need to overcome the hurdle as quickly as possible and continue the pursuit of that task, rather than wasting time or giving up on the task altogether. All of these factors concerning student motivation are very important and must work all together in order to cultivate an environment where motivation can grow. And if students feel motivated, they are more likely to manifest positive behaviors. And we conclude that student motivation is a key factor in student academic success, which is the goal of any educational establishment.
Has the issue been resolved? Yes, the issue of motivation has been resolved due to the factors below. As teachers, we have taken important factors when it comes to teaching inside of a classroom. Teachers are now taking into consideration when teaching in a classroom the following: strategic lesson planning, support inside and outside the classroom, psychological, physical, and emotional abilities when it comes to performing the lesson, academics, holding information meetings for better understanding, tutoring for students who need the extra help. Student assessments now include extrinsic goals and intrinsic goals and include the 4 dimensions of motivation: competence, control and autonomy, interest and value, and relatedness.
Here are some of our conclusions and thoughts. First, student motivation relies heavily upon the teacher. Second, a large number of students have been disengaged with their schoolwork, and that will continue into their life after high school. Changes in how we define goals play a major role in student motivation. Intrinsic value is a vital source of motivation. And lastly, that progress is being made through teacher preparedness and teacher strategies. In discussing student motivation and how it relies heavily upon the teacher, we think about strategies that the teacher uses to motivate their students and the way the teacher approaches the material or presents the material to the student. Secondly, a large number of students have been disengaged with their schoolwork, and how that continues into their life after high school. We see it in both college and in how the student is motivated when they become an adult in the workplace. When looking at the value, be that intrinsic or extrinsic, we believe that intrinsic value is an important role because it changes the mindset from having to pass a test to having to master the content because there is a personal connection with that content because it interests you. Lastly, as teachers begin to look at these theories and the idea of motivation in teacher preparedness programs, we will continue to see teachers using more strategies and be more aware of student disengagement. And we believe that the problem with lack of student motivation will slowly decline. Below are a couple of discussion questions that you can think about and attempt to answer. We'll give you a couple minutes to look at this, and in the next slide, the answers will be discussed.